Okie dokie. So over to our speakers. So we've got Matthew Angell, Innovation Engagement Delivery Lead at Thames Water. We've got John Ryan, CEO at SymTerra. We've got Richard Dennett, Project Delivery Manager at Thames Water. And we've got Joe Taylor, Planning Operations Manager at Lanes Group. So without further ado, I will hand over to Matthew.
Thanks, Chloe. So yeah, I'm Matt Angell. I'm the Innovation Engagement Delivery Lead for Thames Water. So my role is very, very linked into taking innovation and engaging with the wider innovation group across the industry, but also outside the industry. So next slide, please. So I really wanted to talk a little bit about knowledge sharing and why it's so important. As a water and wastewater industry, there's so much commonality that we have between our individual companies. So we perform the same operations. We unfortunately all have the same current issues, and we also face the wider future challenges that are faced by the industry, such as population growth, climate change, things like that. So we all have the same needs within the innovation space. We're really lucky that we work within an industry where there are fewer barriers to sharing best practice, because we aren't actually competing. We have segregated customer bases, and we are all looking to provide the best services for our customers. That said, there are some significant barriers that still exist within that. So we've obviously got competitive regulatory league tables, which means that we are actually competing against each other. Intellectual property rights, a lot of innovators will come to us, but they won't necessarily want to share as widely as we would like within the industry. And obviously we have strict NDAs within our projects that often stifle some of this knowledge sharing. And that's why things like today are really, really important, where we share what we can share as a business. But as innovators, our goal should be to share this innovation as wide as possible. We need to benefit wider society. We need to benefit all of our customers, not just small pockets of them. And that's why the Off-White Innovation Fund has been critical in terms of getting us to work together as an industry and benefit the whole of society rather than just a small proportion of our own customer base. So next slide, please. So what are the benefits? So there's multiple. They're not all documented here, but I just want to go over a few of them. So firstly, it's that nationwide benefits. So it's not just benefiting a small subsection of society. It's not just benefiting London. It's not just benefiting the Northeast. It's benefiting all of the entire country. It allows faster adoption of innovation, because if we're all talking, if we're all collaborating, then we actually can move that innovation forward and get it to BAU as quickly as possible. And obviously with that, two things come into that. So you can division of workload. Rather than all working on this separately, you can come together and you can actually divide that workload up, get it done quicker. And that eliminates that duplication of effort. I think if you were to look back at the industry maybe 10 years ago, a lot of companies were doing the same innovation, but not talking to each other. So this actually means that it removes that duplication of effort and means that we can work together. What that leads to is actually standardized operational improvements. So it means that it's not a single standard in a certain company. It becomes best practice within the industry, which means that the industry and performance as a whole can move forward, enabling us to learn from mistakes, also access to a greater pool of expertise. But the most important thing is it builds this culture of innovation sharing, so that we're not all keeping our secrets to ourselves. We're actually sharing them with the industry. We're sharing them with innovators, and we're actually moving the whole of innovation forward as a whole. And that's just really why it's really important that we have these knowledge showcases, just so that we can move that innovation from theoretical research to BAU, and where we're adopting these innovations at scale where they work. So that's all I'm going to talk about on knowledge sharing, but just wanted to emphasize that it's such an important thing, and you're obviously going to learn some really valuable stuff from the team today. So I will pass on.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. So I'm Richard Dennett. I'm currently the head of strategic pumping stations and trunk sewers. And we'll talk a little bit about the journey that we've gone on with SymTerra and some of the data as we go. And I'll do a bit of introduction to my team. But yeah, thanks for having us, and look forward to taking you through it.
So we're going to run through the context and pain points, what we did, how we implemented the bits and pieces, and then we'll show some demos of the Thames Water side of things, Lanes as well. Joe is joining us from Lanes Group to show us how he's been using the system as well as one of the contractors, and then run down through the learnings and benefits, and then questions and answers afterwards to answer kind of any questions you got from the presentation. So, moving on.
Cool. Right.
Richard.
Yeah, so thanks. So just did a bit of intro. So strategic pumps and trunk sewers. So we run a catchment model, including the pumping stations and the trunk sewers in central London, travelling from west to east. Some of the largest and the biggest. So if you've heard of Abbey Mills, one of the original Bazalgette pumping stations, and all that trunk sewer network. Currently planned for about 10,000 sewer entries a year. And working in the sewers, I've been in the wastewater industry for just shy of 20 years, scarily, but in network for about 7. And working in these trunk sewers is hard. It's London. You can get called out because of the rain. We're tidally affected. We can't see the assets unless we get in there. So it depends how good our records are. And there's so much safety protocol that we go through. So hopefully that just gives a bit of an insight into ourselves and what we do and why we needed to go on a bit of a journey. Yes, next slide, John. So that picture was the start of our journey. We were paper-based and it was hard work, basically. And we relied on those people who've done 40 years service to explain to us, how would you get in that location? What does that asset do? What does it look like? Where was that information stored? Where was it shared? And we all have those people in our team, and they're great people that we rely on, but it made it really, really difficult. We also do a lot of work for third parties, working in London, and, we've got Tideway Tunnel and we've got High Speed 2, which are, significant projects where we need to manage our network differently to facilitate them. And then it can happen at night time. And then getting that handover and that appreciation, what happened on that night shift for the day shift as people came in, with some of our challenges. And so you can see there some of our key priority needs: reduce the number of confined space entries. It's one of the regs in the health and safety code for confined spaces, and we need good data and good understanding to do some of those challenges. Diverting the network, increase our asset condition awareness. So being able to have better visibility, understanding what's going on and making those decisions, and have those records and avoid that gentleman sat there, unfortunately. And the last thing, as John moves to the next slide, please, is, confined space work is expensive, it's labour intensive, and it's expensive. And these are the things we were looking at. How can we be better? And that drove us into 3 real key business needs. And the start of the journey, to be fair, was mainly just about those first 2, going from this paperwork-based, limited information, addressing those first 2, which was improved reporting and knowledge and sharing. And we just, with that paperwork-based, that individual with 20, 30, 40 years experience were great. It was just real challenges, getting good data, good information, good understanding, allowing people to learn and grow and plan that work effectively. Improve visibility of works. Like I was saying, the good examples there is where we have work at night time and you'd get part messages handed over, or you'd not get any messages, and to allow that visibility and learn what happened last time for when you come back 3, 6 or 9 months forward. And then this one is the one that we've been really stepping into probably for the last 12 to 24 months is, well, we've got that data, how we're going to now use it in terms of our information on that asset base, and how we're going to plan potentially our PPM work or our asset base for the future. And that was the 3 needs that we'd addressed, and we went on this journey to support. Yes, John, thank you. I'm not going to read all them out, but these were like the specific pieces that were identified. And one thing I think, depending where you are in the business and your job role or what takes your fancy, each one of them will probably mean more something to you specifically. And the ones that I'll just call out, and I've probably done it already, is the time-stamped reports and real information. We wanted to know what happened, where, when, and how, basically as soon as possible, so we could feed back to our own teams or feed back to external suppliers. Pictures and videos, we needed that information, we needed that lessons learned. We don't want to send people to go and do a recce again at a location, so then we can plan the work for the future. We wanted that information to hand so we could hopefully go and get it right first time and reduce repeat visits. I actually called out the voice dictation. I think when John told me about this one, I probably looked at him and said, why do you want that? And from, one thing about this journey had all users involved, and particularly the technicians who have to use this product and go to work. And the voice dictation for me is a good one, in that it allows someone maybe with IT or wasn't comfortable with grammar just to say what they see. And it just seeing them, it allowed them to buy into the product for me, and allowed them to go on the journey with us to get the data. And then obviously the dashboard is one that I'm key in terms of the reporting, because every entry is a health and safety risk. Every entry is expensive, and we want to get it right first time, get our network correct, do the service for our customers and protect the environment. So they were the specifics that we were trying to look at and we wanted to achieve. Yes, please, John. Right, so I've got mine and John's journey, just a bit of introduction. We actually crossed for the Tideway Tunnel, and so I'm Thames Water, and we are doing work to support the Tideway Tunnel, which we are looking to connect in the next 1 to 2 weeks. And John was a Tideway project manager, and our journeys and our paths crossed with lampy stoppers for sewers, which were inflatable isolation bungs for the sewers. And we needed new technology or new methods of how getting into the sewers. And that's how our paths crossed. And then I think basically we stumbled on this opportunity then with SymTerra many months afterwards, John. So hopefully that's your recollection, and I'll hand over to you.
It is, and thanks to you. I think my actual recollection is staying in probably the most unusual hotel in Germany with the worst curtains I've ever seen in my life. And we're testing it. I think there's a whole other presentation just on the lampy stoppers journey and protection of people working in the sewer environment. So I'm John Ryan. I'm a chartered mechanical engineer by trade. I've worked extensively in London, predominantly in engineering and project management roles. I've spent a lot of my career kind of being on existing infrastructure with kind of, old passenger stuff, 200-year-old stuff, whether that's in the sewer network or within the railway environment side of things. As Richard said, I was on the Tideway side of things, so I was coming in, knocking the crap out of his network and ruining everything and so on. And I must say that when we did come onto the network, onto the Thames Water team, it was a bit of a breath of fresh air for us, that it was a team that was interested in helping us succeed in what we were doing. And I find that sometimes when you come on as a large project in another organization, there's a lot of pushback on that side of things. And I must say that Richard's team, the operations team as a whole, were just open with sharing and helping us succeed on that project. And we might even do a future one on how that working relationship went. But without the Thames's team, their involvement and their massive amount of knowledge share with us, we'd have had a lot more difficulties delivering that. So going on into us, SymTerra side of things, Sarah and myself founded the company 3 years ago. We've both come from some of the coolest projects and companies in the UK. So we've worked for Mason, we worked for Lang & Work, TfL, Network Rail, Priory Group as well in the healthcare. We've worked on some great projects in Tideway, Olympics, Crossrail, etc. and stuff. We're very much from the industry, over 25 years experience of it. We just kind of got bogged down a bit too much in engineering and project management roles of doing admin. And none of us joined the industry to do admin. We kind of ended up doing it more and more as time went on. And what we wanted to do was the cool stuff on the right-hand side. So river walls in London, trying to make sure that they're fit for purpose and that we can do our tunnelings. We got the tunnel projects there in the middle, the before and after pictures of the secondary lining at 38 degrees temperature and over 100 and something percent humidity, and then the finished article down at the bottom right-hand side and stuff. But what actually we end up doing is a ton of admin, a ton of documentation, a ton of paperwork that takes us away from helping our teams deliver work safely and efficiently on the ground. And one of the things that kind of drives that from us as an industry as a whole is that the communication side of things is kind of broken. What we've got is the office teams, Richard, myself, others here on the call, with our schedules, our permits, our traffic management plans, documents, forms, drawings, etc., being pushed down to the site team. And in response, what we've got then is the phone calls, WhatsApp messages, emails, and maybe a few PDFs from a reporting system coming back. And kind of Richard mentioned earlier on is that we've got nighttime working going on. So what we plan to do X, what the team at night achieved Y, and what's the delta Z, we never really quite got up front because we had partial information, not the full picture, and that creates more paperwork, more trackers, more documents, and more admin side of things. So the idea of SymTerra was to create this kind of feedback loop for the teams on the ground to go out and be able to communicate what they're doing, how they're doing it, make it as simple and as easy as possible for that to happen. So we've been lucky, I suppose. We've kind of hit onto a good thing of effectively being WhatsApp for the built world environment. We've been lucky to go up and work on some really cool companies, projects here and stuff like that. Like, so we've got a number of projects down here in London with Kier, Thames Water and Tior. Up north, we've got D2 Global working with us on the Trans-Pennine route upgrade project and stuff. And then we've got other companies then in other industries, from housing developments through to sods planter and other kind of groups and bits and pieces of that. So it's kind of really cool. It's spread across the whole place, like, but it is just focusing on the communication side of things and what we've got. It's been acknowledged by Bloomberg as one of the top 25 startups in the UK. So we're up there with all the greats such as Monzo and OnlyFans. And then Google this year has announced a partnership with us as well. So we're one of their partners within the Built World division of their business. And we kind of work with them to enable their clients and ours to get the most out of their data. And the key thing is creating a pipeline of information from site back to the client in a way that adds the most amount of value to the client. So whether you want the information in SharePoint, OneDrive, put into Power BI dashboards, or use it even to go off and train AI models, this is where we can kind of come in and help with that side of things. That's a brief kind of thing on the Terra side of things. So I'm going to go back to Richard to kind of we'll start talking with you how we went forward, I think.
Yeah, and it probably was a bit of a whirlwind on the Thames piece, what we're accountable for, and bringing in John's piece from SymTerra and all those learned experiences. And, you know, so part of this is about the journey and the lessons learned. And I think this has been a journey, a true collaborative journey. And now I should have remembered how long, but we've been on this journey for quite a few years. And the collaboration has been there throughout the journey and has involved everyone from the end users to the managers. And I think, you know, the good thing about this and this collaborative journey is we knew what we did in the sewers. We roughly knew what we wanted out of it, but we didn't know what that would look like. And we were able to work together to develop that. And, you know, we change our mind, which was probably a frustration sometimes to Sarah, that we change our mind because we didn't necessarily know what to do, but then the ability to come back, review, refresh, change, and develop it. So it has been a collaborative journey that we're still on now, tweaking this product to get the best out of it for our work.
So here's a few examples of some of the slides in the development of what we're looking at, which was initially kind of, I suppose we call it the Safe Sewer Entry app side of things. And we work very closely with Richard and his team. We had Sally Dobbin Edwards as well, helping kind of being our conduit and our contact bits and pieces within his team to help us kind of do those things. But here's kind of some examples of it. We focused very much on the team and how they would use it. And what we noticed about past tech that we had used in past projects, it was always very much designed for the bottom up, the top down approach of things from management downwards. It was designed by IT people, designed around the office and the management needs, as opposed to looking at what is it like on site and how it's going. Now, I come from a rail environment, you know, working on Christmas Day in the snow with lots of heavy machinery and trains flying around me in different directions on different tracks and everything kind of being quite busy. You know, trying to type out a full report on a BlackBerry at the time was quite difficult and quite clunky. So what we want to do is make sure we focused on designing up something that was fit for the team on the ground, but also captured what was very important for Richard and a team in the office to help them make better decisions. Richard said there's over 10,000 entries a year being done across the network. These are confined space entries. These are dangerous works. You don't want to put people unnecessarily into these kind of positions. And if you are, you want to make sure they got the right information to hand. So we capture it as simple as possible, put a lot of time, a lot of effort into it, a lot of testing. On the other side of things, we want to make sure we're capturing is correct and what the output is also working for Richard and the team. So we've got a form builder in the system, so we make sure we captured the right information. I think the early feedback was very much don't overload a team with 50 questions. When they've got options to have non-mandatory questions, they typically will skip them anyway, so why bother including them? And we work very closely with past experience of over about 20,000 reports that we've done previously, to be able to go off and shape what is the best and cleanest and simplest way of doing it. We're going to show some examples of that later on and stuff like. So the idea was to go off and make sure that it was fit for purpose for the teams on the ground, but also for the office team, that Richard and his guys could actually get the value out of it and stuff as well.
And I think just this picture just paints it. This is the team, the people that go out every day, go into that London network in all sorts of weather conditions, and they were engaged from the start to be part of that journey. So when we talk about a change project or bringing something on board and collecting the right data, that the reason this has been successful and the engagement has been high is that we've dealt with the right people at the right time. And these gentlemen who go out and do this every day are subject matter experts in how you go into sewers, what's in that network, and what information is required for me for the future. And that was the aim, is to get the right people involved, so that data we had for future planning of our assets and asset management was good and was purposeful. And you can just see the team involved, and they weren't forced to smile. They genuinely enjoyed these sessions and to provide that data. So thanks, John.
There was a whole thing. I think the smiles were most down to the hot cross bun breakfast roll with bacon, which is probably the best mix of things ever. So we kind of, the lads helped us develop a lot, as Richard said, like, and stuff. And that user engagement, understanding how they function, how they use it and stuff, was very, very important. And we designed the app around them and make sure it was fit for purpose for the teams on the ground. So whether it was a 16-year-old apprentice or 65-year-old person who says, I don't like tech, but can really use the tech and understand it, we made sure that it was as simple and as easy as possible for them. It wasn't intimidating. It wasn't something that you open and there's 500 buttons and you don't know what to press. If you press the wrong thing, you get it wrong and stuff. So we very much focused in around the simplicity, the multiple stakeholders as well, to allow as much people, so whether that's the employees in Thames or the subcontractors come on board, the data interoperability, so we do capture it. Can you actually use it where you need it, when you need it? And then also the sharing side of things, of being able to go off and share with the people who need it and stuff. And the key thing here is we need to go off and make sure the teams are working safely on the ground. And if you don't have access to the right information, then we're not going to go off and help achieve that kind of goal and stuff. So these are kind of a few screenshots, bits and pieces. The idea is to go off and make it very simple, very clean, be able to capture photographs, videos, bits and pieces. We do have a quick video of that to go off and kind of show you how it actually kind of works on the ground side of things. But we kind of very much trying to make it look like most other apps that they've got on their existing devices. And that means that it's less intimidating, less of a problem, and people are more confident in using it because they're familiar with the layout and flow of bits and pieces.
Oh, this is me. And I think, hopefully just building that picture of getting those user requirements, building the system works, and then where did we go next on that journey? And the next part of that journey was getting that useful information and getting those reports. And we remember that terrible image of sat someone down with lots of paperwork. This is available to all who want to see this information in our system. But for myself and the management team, we can look at this data live on our system, look at it live on our phones, and get a daily report in the morning with a PDF report. And it just, like you say, that visibility, that understanding, that progress just became so much more apparent overnight by you implementing the system.
So when we had that one of the proof of concept side of things in place, this was kind of timed to go off and start getting it rolled out and stuff across the teams and start seeing, does it actually work? Does it actually do what we had planned it to go off and do? And then we're kind of looking at then like what we want to get further from it. So we started using the basics. We got the basics up and running, the teams buy-in, their support. We refined, we improved, we optimized it to work around the teams on the ground and what Richard was kind of looking for. And that's kind of where we then kind of come on. We've gone from the Safe Sewer app and the entries was, well, what do we actually need to go off and look at and what's important to the teams on the ground? So then we started looking at assets. So this is where we kind of start within the exciting world of electronic asset management systems. And typically, for those who kind of worked on these before, they're quite massive, quite complex, quite difficult to go off and use. And the update of the information coming through has always been hard to go off and either access it or provide updates. So we kind of took that out as being a challenge in our side of things. And what we need to do is make sure that we start as a bottom up. We want to capture from the ground what's happening on the assets and report that back up into the asset management system, as opposed to the asset management system being traditionally a desktop piece of software that is updated in the office with a lot of documentation and not always available to the teams on the ground. So what we started looking at is looking at the assets themselves and looking at the functionality around what's important, what we need to capture with. And what we quickly kind of came up with is we kind of need to know everything about the assets. We need to know where, what, who did it, what reports were done on it. So whether it was a permit to operate, isolate an asset, whether it was monthly inspections, annual inspections, refurbishment, modernizations, decommissioning, etc. We need to go up and have a timeline of the assets as a kind of a different way of seeing things and seeing the information and making it more usable for the managers who are sending their teams in to do the works, and the teams on the ground being able to look at the asset before they go in and have to go undertake the works. So we kind of, part of this, and kind of mentioned a data pipeline, is that a lot of the existing asset management systems are not cross-referenced. They don't play nicely with others. They don't have that kind of interoperability side of things as much. So what we want to do is kind of add a lot more functionality within it as is needed for the teams. So whether you want to link it with Google Maps, what3 Words becoming very popular within the infrastructure world, and even systems in like SAP for inventory and other bits and pieces, it's all kind of available. So you can see a few screens there of linking it to what3 Words locations on the ground, linking it to activities as well. So if you've got scheduled work, so you want to kind of have that kind of thing in the system, it's available. And then the assets themselves. So it was very simply, I'm doing traffic management relating to 4 assets for works later on this evening, you can just link it to it. So the next time I'm doing traffic management on that street or on those assets, I can use that past work to inform my method statements and risk assessments to make sure I can work a little bit more efficiently the next time and a bit safer for the teams on the ground, or replicate what's the best practice for that area as well. And as we started building this one, when we got this pipeline, we started building out the dashboards. We started kind of with the base information. As I mentioned earlier on, everything that we capture is usable in a dashboard in some way. So if question 14 on a certain form is very important to the business and you want to see a pie chart, that can be brought out in bits and pieces. Each of the dashboards are custom built for each of our clients to make sure that it actually adds value to them. I'd love to say that there's a standard weekly, monthly look ahead for every business out there, but it's just not the case. Every company has a different way of doing things and a different things that are important to them. So we very much focus in on delivering what's actually important. What makes Richard's life easier, I suppose, at the end of the day, and how can we go off and reduce his workload and also allow him to focus on what matters in supporting his team and what's kind of going on there. So a key kind of focus really is kind of like allowing Richard to be aware and prepare for the works. And we've got kind of this level of asset availability and what the recent reports were done for the teams. Again, we'll be showing this on a video anyway to kind of run you through it and stuff. But it is kind of allowing you to go off and have the awareness of that one and preparing for bits and pieces. And then we've got the ability then for Richard to go off and prioritize and report on what's happening and to reduce his workload side of things as well, like and stuff. But if you want to jump in there, Richard, anything?
No, look, spot on. I think, it's allowing the team now. We started to remember those 3 priority pieces about getting daily reports and understanding it. Now we've built up records and a few years of history. We're now allowed to start looking at that plan, the work and the data, and look at those improvements. And it's allowing us to have those data-led conversations that we all love to have, and asking those whys, why are we doing that and why can we do that differently? And that's where some of our exciting conversations are going, and that's some of the interesting challenges on what we do. Can we do it smarter? Can we use the technology? But this has given us that insight to have those conversations with a mass of photos, because the team love taking photos, to actually explain what does it look like below that surface in London, and what are the challenges to accessing and maintaining that piece of equipment, and readily available to all. So yeah, thanks, John.
Yeah, and you touched on the point about the photograph side of things. On our daily digest that Richard and the team get at 6 a.m. every morning, it's got a photo of the day. And when the teams are seeing these photographs coming in, they're seeing, oh, my manager is getting to see these pictures that I didn't take very well or something else. And we've seen a massive increase in the quality of the photographs. The teams are taking a bit more pride in what they're taking and how they're sharing it. Richard mentioned the voice dictation. We're seeing some great notes coming through because a team don't have to spell everything. They don't have to type it all out. They don't have to do that. And that reduces the level of access to technology and record keeping. That allows them to share updates and bits and pieces. There's some fantastic ones in the system that are coming through from the guys of it's war and peace on what they did that day. But in 6 months' time, when you're going back to that location, it's absolutely massive benefit that I can see around it. I got 15, 20 pictures. I got a quick video, especially of the airtight manhole covers, which is fantastic to see the testing of that. You can hear the noise and see the manhole staying in place. And we've got that kind of help around it that builds a bigger and bigger picture of what's kind of going on the ground. So what I'm going to go off and do now is give you a quick, we are running slightly ahead of time anyway, which is great. So I'm going to go off and show you 2 quick videos, one on the mobile side of things, of how the mobile works and how the team on the ground kind of see it and how they do a quick planned preventative maintenance activity on a penstock. And then I'll show you then what that looks like on the web as well for the teams on the ground. So let's press play on this one. So this is the mobile app. What you can see is a feed, a timeline of every activity that you've got in here. It's only got 5 buttons on it. There's a purple plus button where you can press and add an update. So you can add photographs and videos from it to the bottom left button, or simply go off and add a gallery view. So you can select the relevant pictures you want to go off and highlight within this update. And then if I want to, I can just select a picture and edit that picture and provide a kind of a red line markup on it as well. So you get the ability to go off and circles, squares, add text, or just simply drag your hand over it and just kind of highlight an issue or a problem or something you want to go off and identify in the thing. Tags, it's like using hashtags on the system. It's really simple, clean and easy to use. It shows you the most common ones used for this particular catchment. And the teams on the ground kind of typically use it to go up and highlight different areas. Then we've got like a few different areas to go off and choose from. So here's activities. So this is where we are based in North London. And then just looking down towards one of the Thames Water sites, I can highlight where I'm saying is going to be the penstock location using what 3-word squares, but also I can highlight where I parked the van. So when we got parking tickets, we got evidence of where I parked and what I did. So here you can see all the what 3 words being highlighted. You can add activities or you can add assets as well onto the system. So this is very powerful. We've got all assets across 110,000 kilometers of sewer network. Now you can search by the asset number, or if I want, I could search by the location, the postcode of it, the asset type, and so on. So the idea is that the team on the ground don't have to go hunting through big lists. They can make it simple and straightforward. When I want to add a report on this particular asset, I can just pick the PPM one. And then this is pretty much a standard report side of things that you all know and love and try and do it. And this is where we kind of worked really well with Richard and the team, was to go off and make sure to have the minimum amount of work for the team on the ground to capture, because their job is to go off and deliver work safely, not to do a ton of admin. So drop down menus, tick box bits and pieces, highlighting, choosing one or many bits and pieces. And where we need to, we put in the tech side of things. We also ask questions kind of in reverse order. So one of the ones here, this one, is where you would highlight where there's a problem, not highlight everything that's okay. So this reduced the workload for the team, and it allows then Richard to focus in on there's ladder access issues here, other bits and pieces, problems and so on to highlight and stuff. So we always kind of thought about what we're capturing on the mobile app and what value does that actually add to the team in the office. Red, amber, green, so simple traffic light system. One of the things that we did is that we put it green, amber, and then red, so that the teams on the ground don't have to go off and slide more than they have to. And then you got your final summary page then as well. If you're happy, you can then go off and press send, phone in the back pocket, and then crack on with the rest of your day. So that's just basically a very, very quick PPM being filled in. I think if I look at the timing on that one, it kind of works out at being about 1.5 minutes to go off and do that. And the idea is that the least amount of effort that a team on the ground need to put into something, the more inclined they are to go off and use it. And as we've seen when we're working with Richard, the team and other clients, is that when we bring out a feature that improves the working for the teams on the ground, we've seen a bump in usage, more photographs, more information coming through from them because it's simpler and easier to use, and they're more inclined to go off and use it. So looking at the web side of things, so this is kind of more for the office side of Teams. Obviously, anybody who has access to mobile also can log in on the web and they can see the information, but we very much kind of split out some of the use cases between the two different parties here. So very, very similar look and feel here. So this is the same timeline as we saw before, with the options that you have got a search bar. So any bit of text you can search for within any update across the entire catchment. And you have the ability then to go off and filter for, let's say, RAG status or the hashtags that we showed earlier. So if I'm just picking on the penstock one and picking for the planned preventative maintenance and other activities only, it'll then bring up every bit of work that has the hashtag penstock and it is a maintenance activity side of things. So if I go into looking at Luke's one here from Joyce Green. So Luke was one of our earliest kind of users on the system. We've got his photographs here as well, so you can slick down through it and have a look. You can pop out the pictures as well. So we always want to make sure that the photographs are always accessible. You don't want to be squinting at a thumbnail trying to make out what is going on. And then because we always love a good PDF, every question, every answer, every photograph, and everything else is all captured in there. This makes it really easy to go off and share the information then across multiple teams and multiple parties. So if somebody hasn't got access to the system, but you need to share that with a supplier, you can do. Now we got this reply sub function. This is on both mobile and web, and it means that you can go off and add in extra information, provide additional information and other bits and pieces against Luke's update and stuff. So it's got all the same functionality as the mobile, but it's also got the ability to go off and attach files on the web. So if you're doing penstock inspections and structural assessments and you wanted the engineer's assessment at the end, you can simply attach that then against the asset. Now, this is kind of the cool part of the asset management side. I can simply click on one of these assets from Luke's update, and it will then open up a full feed of every update against that particular asset in one place. So here's all the feed against that one. So if I was going to go back there again in 6 months' time, after Luke did his work last week, I can go off and have a look at this one, see where the red amber issues are, see any kind of problems, and then be able to go off and jump on those issues quickly and easy. Again, if there's a ton of updates, I can just go off and just do the filters based on the search bars on the very top side of things, make it easy for me to go and find what needs to be done. So that's kind of the basic level of capturing information, providing updates, adding additional files. And this is kind of where we start getting into the fun world of additional kind of information. So this is kind of like our standards dashboard that's available to all of our clients, simple filters and bits and pieces, allowing teams just to quickly jump in to find things. And then when we're looking at the PPM side of things for Richard's team and operations, we're looking at kind of three kind of core areas. So this is the one that we're able to show today, which is asset availability, PPMs, and a backlog report. So quickly, Richard can see what's his asset availability across the 3 different networks and what's the total one. And then within the last reports that are being done by the teams on the ground, you got this live feed of everything up to date in one place, with the ability to go off and click on one of those hyperlinks to go off and bring up the relevant PDF document. And if I want, read the document, read the report side of things, and then with the photographs of the thumbnails on the PDF, I can simply just go off and click on it, and that will then bring up the full version of the image. And what we don't want to do is have information locked away that's just not available to people that need it and stuff. And it's amazing how much information we can get out of a good picture against an asset that would make or break some piece of work for later on this evening side of things. So within the planned preventive maintenance, this is the important part here. What are we doing? Where are we doing it? So we've got months by catchment. So where are we doing? What's trending? Obviously, this is a very unusual side of things in operations and facilities management type business where it's weather dependent. So we can see that so far in the month of April, 228 assets were inspected up until midweek last week. 91 were still remaining. Some of those, as we've all kind of discovered, developers pouring tarmac over manhole covers and stopping access, being weathered off, cars parked in wrong places, etc. You can go off and filter. So I can look at covers. So 16 inspected, 27 remain, and of the remaining ones, there they all are on the list at the bottom, and the last report there is on the bottom right-hand side. So we can see what it is. Again, we can bring up maps of this one as well. So they're kind of hidden at the moment on this show and tell, but we'd have maps visibility. So if I wanted to, I could go down to a certain postcode, a certain area, and quickly wrap up a lot of those ones. And then we're looking at the backlog. So what's kind of overdue? Which assets couldn't we get to due to accessibility issues, due to problems with other ancillary assets and so on, and what needs to be kind of looked at. So when you've got a spare moment, you can kind of look into this one and look at all my pen stocks. I've got 43 of them are kind of overdue inspections. When was it last reported? And then by priority level, by catchment location and so on. So this allows you to go off and focus in on, if I had some spare time next week, what can I kind of jump onto, or why can't I look at those assets and stuff and provide them with additional information and stuff. So that is basically on our side, bits and pieces. So that's all well and good. We got the client organization and tech bits and pieces, and now we've got to go and look and see how we can go off and work with the contractors and see if it adds value to these teams. So I'm going to introduce you to Joe. We met Joe as part of these works in a rollout with Richard and his team. And Joe was kind of one of the early adopters and people kind of coming on board to see if it actually helped him and his team. Was it another bit of tech that a client is pushing out that's adding no value in bits and pieces? So this is kind of where was a big test for us to make sure that we could actually work with and play nicely with others and stuff, because without the contractors delivering the works, we're kind of nowhere in the thing. So I'm going to stop waffling now, Joe.
Okay. Yes, good morning. I'm Joe Taylor. I'm the operations manager for Lanes Group, and we work in collaboration with Richard and his trunk sewer teams. We was introduced to SymTerra through Richard because previously we would receive emails and photos and we'd have to put them on a Word document, which was time consuming. With SymTerra, it's done in the field, all in one place. It's one simple download and send, or we've actually shared our folders with Thames, who've got access to view live data and photos and track how jobs are going on with activities, Gantt charts, and all different bits and pieces. The engineers found it really simple to use in the field, which makes it easy. And the information is we have no problems with information coming through every single minute of the day. So that's all good. So this is just a video showing how I use the SymTerra in the office. So it's a trunk sewer folder, and we use activities where we put all our trunk sewer program work in. So this is a job we're doing at the moment over in Upper Street, Thames. So we're just going to gallery and we're looking at the photos of what the engineers are doing. So this shows a sewer that we found that needed cleaning. And then we've got a photo where it shows the sewer's been cleaned, a post survey. I can then go in and see where they were working from 3 what words. We can then go in and check the plant on site, the engineers on site. You've got IB entry numbers on there, which were issued by the independent team. All the comments from the engineers on site, and then any follow-on works. This is shared with all the engineers, have access to this, and anybody who's going the next shift can see this, all the photos. There's more photos of them in the sewer cleaning. Also, we attach the risk assessments and method statements. So this is where we attach the risk assessments and approval forms. This is the check-in. So we've got a check-in feature of a logbook, so we know who's on site, what time they've got in and out. And, yeah, I think I've gone through most of that, John. Pass it back to yourself.
Yeah, that works. Yeah, I think one of the key things you kind of highlighted was that you're using the activities side of things to link the relevant documentation, RAMs, method statements, documentation to not just the activity, but also down to the asset, so that later on we can see how we did that work the last time. Was it successful? And then we can use that then as the methodology for the next time. Or if we highlight that there's a problem with grating or a ladder, we then know for the next time that this is something to be watched out for, is put onto the risk assessment, and then we can use that then to go off and plan a safer entry for the next time and so on. So it's quite cool to go off and see the activities feature being linked in with the asset side of things and how it's kind of growing.
Conscious we can end up covering a lot in that small period of time, and I think Lanes, Joe Taylor in particular, but Lanes is a key partner of ourselves who do a lot of work in our sewer network. And it's not just Lanes, but it's our other partners that when they're doing this work, we're given access to. And you know, that is, so we want the data for the future, so our successors or future plans, people can get that, and it's all in one place. But it also just shows the ease of capturing it and the ease of the system, that actually we can get people on board using this app, using this data capture quite easily, so we can truly have a full, if you like, asset inventory, history, data, records, say system of works, what did you do in that location in one place. And that leads you to, we just got a few slides on the benefits to come through there, or sorry, this is the learning, should I say, and then a few of the benefits come from there. I think, you know, IT projects, particularly for someone like myself, operations can be a bit like, oh my gosh, an IT project, here we go. And I think, you know, on this journey here, what we've been able to do is start small with tangible benefits, what we need to do, and work with people, our own team and external suppliers, to develop accordingly and take people on that change journey as we learn and we grow and we go forward. We spoke earlier about getting the key people involved. There's been multiple departments within Thames and our suppliers, Lanes and others, to say what works, what data would you capture, our health and safety teams, to make it work. The third bullet point there, we did have a project manager, a lady called Sally Dodman-Edwards, who helped embed this and put in a significant amount of effort to drive that forward and give a cohesive message to all teams. And without that person, you know, if you're managing change, you need someone to take that reins, lead it and take it forward. It would have been a more challenging journey. There's no getting away from that. And so that definitely was a big, you know, shout to Sally, and a great success story to take that change management and own it forward. The champions, we all know, again, if you have those champions, you start getting them talking to the teams, bring the team on board, and they understand the benefits. And the last one there, I go back into it. I'm not a technical IT type person in that respect, but we knew we needed something better. And by working with people from the industry who understood it, from construction, from safety, but also from IT infrastructure, we were able to take ourselves on that journey. And they were the key lessons, really. I think without going too much through this, I think John has mentioned it earlier. I think the one thing that strives through on the success of the learning is the collaboration. And that is people like myself, Joe, John, all wanting to achieve the same thing, which is a system that works, that provides data, and people want to wake up and use in the morning. And then me and Joe are probably a bit excitable about trunk sewers. We do love trunk sewers, but ultimately, the learnings were about just working together and bringing that collaboration on board. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, John, really.
Yeah, I think it was kind of working with your team on the ground. I think we've seen IT projects going wrong in past jobs where it was led by the IT department, pushing it down to the users on the ground, as opposed to user developed kind of stuff coming back from the people who are meant to be benefiting from it all. So I think we kind of took that as being a kind of a challenge on our side to spend more time with your teams on the ground to understand it. I suppose luckily we've been in your industry. We do know what the challenges are. We do know the difficulties in it. We do know the problems that you kind of face, and not all of it, but we've got a very good feeling for it. And we have been delivering stuff like Tideway and stuff beforehand. So it's been quite beneficial for us to work with your teams. That's shaped a much better system that's kind of benefited everybody. We continue to work across all of our clients as a way forward. We've definitely taken that as being our key thing, that we have that feedback from it. So on our side, we got kind of Garrett leading our operations side. He's ex-safety manager, NEBOSH trained, the whole lot, comes from site, and he works very well with the team on the ground. We've very much taken that. We want to be part of a solution within a business to be able to help them kind of get the most out of it and stuff. And the electronic asset management systems have always been such a huge part of businesses and so difficult and such a challenge. We wanted to try and unlock the bottom-up approach of the human-centric information. So what are the teams actually experiencing on the ground? How is the asset performing? What the problems are? And how we can go off and use that then to empower the teams on the ground to share what's going on with management, with the rest of the organization, so that people then can go off and collectively use that pot of information to make the right things. And I suppose we got lucky, we're working with yourself, your teams. We also had Joe and his team kind of adopting and providing a lot of feedback. I think I know that we changed some of the fonts and stuff like that on the PDFs, and Joe was straight on the phone to us, giving out to us about some of bits and pieces of being passionate about getting the things. So, we like that. We find that very useful and beneficial. And the goal is to go off and develop a system that is adding value to the business, is actually providing tangible benefits to it and stuff. I think we didn't come from tech. We didn't come from a software background. I think one of the big learnings that we did have was to go off and start working with the IT teams, cyber security, procurement, and other bits and pieces up front and very quickly with the teams in parallel with the actual end users. And that'll kind of make things go a bit quicker and smoother for us. And it allows us to go off and integrate it across the whole business in a faster kind of manner and stuff. So going to Joe, here's some points from yourself, Joe.
As you can see, we've so far since we started with SymTerra, we've completed 32 projects. We've had 6,004 updates, 45,602 photos, and the free what words location. That alone has probably saved hundreds of hours in admin work, transferring different data into the same place, where it's all just been done on one. Also, with the clients engaging, we can share stuff with Richard, with the teams themselves. If, for instance, Thames has done a PMI, big PMI, and want to have the cleans done, they can find out within view it and realise we've done the work to replan their work. We've got the ability to create our own forms where if we get a job where the scope changes, we can go in and change that risk assessment online and it will automatically update on the phones. We can get the key information out, download, and we can put it on OneDrive or they can share it. With the activities, we do the plan maintenance, so we can just have that one activity, the one job in a program for going on years and years and years. And you could just drop down that box and see, we went down 23, 24, 25 to see exactly where people are working, what was done, the confined space entry we done, traffic management, bits and pieces. Thames Water have access to all of our data, and the free what words is really handy because sometimes we could be doing a clean that is 1,000 metres long, but we work under one address. We can then get free what words to find exactly where they're working on that evening if we're 200 metres down from the original address we're working. That's good. Brilliant.
What we kind of highlight here, I suppose, is the client benefit and the contractor benefits side of things. I don't know, Richard, do you want to jump in on the client one?
Yeah, I think that the top of the slide summarises it. You know, the visibility, the pace, and the flexible real-time reporting is the benefits, but it's not just ourselves, it's with our stakeholders who are doing equally a vast amount of work in the sewer network. And we said earlier, doing these work in the sewers, you know, Joe just talked about, you know, doing 1,000 metres, takes weeks and months of planning. So that we want to get it right, we want to take those lessons, and we want to do it as most effectively and efficiently as possible. And you know that we can see there the connected workforce and the evidence in the history record established, we can have a far better, purposeful, real-time conversation on that asset, on that planned work, on that reactive, which might be customer environmental led, as soon as that update is done. Joe's been doing work in our network cleaning for a long time. I don't know, Joe, I've known you at least 7 years, so at least 7 years, I think, if not longer, on the trunk network. But I don't know. But our conversations in the last 12 to 24 months of what's required, what's the challenges, are far more effective and efficient. It is, we can literally get to the problem, understand it, and ask ourselves, how can we navigate that accordingly? And I don't know if you've got anything, Joe, to add till we move on to the next slide.
Yeah, no, again, just for me, it's just simplified everything with, you know, Richard might say, I need an update now. Previously, I'd have to go and download photos, get a PDF doc, copy and paste the remarks, put it all together while Richard's waiting. Now it's just one simple download or one share, and Richard's got access to everything that we can do.
No, thanks, Joe. Thank you. And then we come on to the next one, and you know, an audit trail is absolutely key for what we do and understand. We understand, you know, some of the challenges and the scrutinies on the water industry at the moment, and some of the questions. And so this allows us to have these reports to hand, to understand the work, to audit ourselves, or provide explanations to external stakeholders as well. And I think we mentioned earlier, the quality of the reports has grown and continues to grow as well. And like you say, we've got the availability to share it easily amongst ourselves. There's a lot of defensibility, and I know John is always there about, but actually if we've got a record, we can clearly show what we've done, and that allows me and Joe to have a really good tangible conversation about the performance of that shift or that work that's required. Thanks, John.
The idea of the commercial defensibility is that you get paid for the work that you do on it, like it removes the arguments or the noise around things, and it just cuts down through it, going, well, this is the shift, this is the work we did, here are the before and after pictures of what the team did, this is how we set it up, this is how we did it safely, and so on. So we found that across the board that the commercial defensibility ends up just becoming, it turns into, from commercial defensibility into collaborative working between different teams and different organizations and stuff, like. So hopefully it'll kind of move towards more of a collaborative approach than an adversarial approach in other industries and other kind of projects that we've kind of seen. So then we're kind of going to kind of like the risk awareness side of things. I think, Joe, you're very much going to be talking about the what, three words and locations and the assets and bits and pieces and stuff, like, and how we can provide better overview of things.
Yeah, so again, we might get a job come in at one address, and we might end up 1,000 meters away from that one address, and previously you'd have no way. You might get a manual number, you might have access to GIS, so you can easily put your 3 what words in, which will take you to exactly where they are. You can then use the Google to get the postcode and work out where they are. You can change your job address to that. That has just simplified everything, instead of searching, dragging a map along trying to find where you think they are. It pinpoints exactly where they're working, which is a massive saving benefit as well on time.
Yeah, and one thing we did use with your updates and others, like for the assets and locations, the asset management system might not always have the right locations. So what we do then is a kind of a quarterly wrap up of which assets have we got certainty around, okay, but other ones then, how can we improve the locations of it? How can we get information around, well, it's here on this street, but the access is in a different point and stuff, like. So we have done cleanups of the asset register as well. We've updated it, we've switched out, we've provided additional information behind it and stuff based on the actual reports on the ground of people undertaking the works. And that's been very beneficial, I think, to provide more certainty around the asset list, I think, Richard. I think it's kind of giving your team more confidence that what they are looking at is fit for purpose and it is actually the right information, as opposed to, oh, well, look, nobody trusts it because it's all wrong and why bother trying and stuff like. So they are seeing that positive feedback, I think.
No, absolutely agreed, John. Absolutely agreed. I think the and the old WhatsApp and coming in at 6 in the morning to see what happened last night is exactly where we were, to understand what was going on, to having that live report with the what 3 words, with the information and link to the asset. And that has been achieved to create that asset base and that information. And then, like I say, what we've moved into is a zone of the performance management piece and looking at the longer term and looking at the risk associated with some of the works and the assets in particular, and where we're going to drive our energy for the forward. And hopefully that graphic probably just summarizes the journey we've gone through. And it's probably one of the only pieces that if we take Joe, really connected and using the same system as our supplier, that we can access the same information, hopefully driving safety and the efficiency of those shifts, maximizing the efficiency of those shifts. And some of our shifts, we can be limited to 4 hours because of tidally influenced. So it really does. Every shift, every hour counts. And that's what we're trying to drive by having this collaborative information that we can all use. And that kind of comes us to the last slide, which is just John wanted to keep in, is that gentleman's still here. He's still smiling and he's happy. And that paperwork is stored in boxes somewhere very safely. But that is what we have stopped, and that's where we took it forward and what we've achieved. And I still think, looking forward, me and John have had conversations, and Joe, about kind of what's next. What do we do with that data? How do we manipulate it? What else can we capture? So as much as this is landed, I think every year or so we've tweaked it a bit more and changed it to suit our new requirements, or just seeing how fast we can take it out. And that hopefully comes to the end, John.
Yeah, but it like and stuff. And that's kind of the initial part. Any questions? There's some of our contact details and bits and pieces and stuff. I think it's back over to Leah.
Thanks, John, and thank you, Richard and Joe as well for the informative session. Those demos were really great. It's great to see